How would you summarize what the RSS stands for?
Primarily, feudal values in the modern form: hierarchy, birth based hierarchy, unshakable hierarchy of caste and gender. And the other side, as India was growing, it was growing on the very, very elementary values of liberty, equality, fraternity, social justice. RSS stands on two legs. One is the values of Manusmriti, the values of caste and gender hierarchy, and second is its stance against religious minorities, Muslim to begin with, and Christians to be followed up. Baba Sahab, and thereby the Indian values which emerged, they were basically against the values of this Manusmriti, which were around caste gender hierarchy. And other side, K. Sudarshan. Sudarshan said, Indian constitution is based on the Western values. That is not acceptable to us. So that should be scrapped. So in India, what is happening? First of all, they deleted the Mughal period from the history, saying that this has no relevance to us. When Janata Party came to power, Lal Krishna Advani became Information and Broadcasting Minister. So he started planting RSS characters into the media. Stage 1. Stage 2, in 2003, when Modi is the Chief Minister of Gujarat, he gives blank check to the corporate world. Then third, their own social media.
Yeah.
Again, huge. Fourth, their Shishu Mandirs, Ekal Vidyalaya. And so this chain, which has grown right under our seeing the whole thing, this chain is very powerful, very difficult to break, and mainly because I think we have to blame ourselves that when all this was going on, what were we doing?
Salam, Namaste, Zindabad. This is Harsh Mander here for another episode of Partitions of the Heart, the second season, which we are on which we are focusing on 100 years of the RSS. Um, this is a collaboration between Himal, South Asia, with South Asia, which has been doing extraordinary reporting of South Asia for more than, I think, 38 years. And Karwane Mohabbat, which is working with hate violence, hate crime. I'm extremely privileged, and I say that with great sincerity. We're very, very privileged to have Dr. Ram Puniyani with us. Dr. Ram Puniyani is certainly one of the most tireless, indefatigable, dedicated peace workers that we have in this country. He recently turned 80, and it's hard to believe because the kind of energy he has in far corners of India, he will go and work with young people, helping them deal with their prejudices and fears regarding the other community. But apart from that, he writes very, very regularly on issues of injustice and hate crime. But it's interesting that and the changes and distortions of history. But it's interesting that actually Ram is actually not a by training a historian. He's by training a medical doctor, and he worked at the IIT Bombay as a senior medical officer for many years. I think 27 years. And since then, he's been involved in human rights work and fighting Hindutva fundamentalism in India. He also is the president of the Center for the Study of Society and Secularism, which was established by another legend, Askar Ali Engineer Saab. So in Ram, we have a writer, a volunteer, a peace worker, a public speaker, a doctor, a teacher, a medical researcher. So many things combined, uh, and uh, and very warm welcome. Thank you, Ram, for doing this for us. Um,
Thanks, Harsh, for your generous, kind words for me. Thank you so much.
thank
Happy
you,
to
Ram.
meet you.
So Ram, let's get started and get into our conversation right away.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
See, the RSS, as we know, on in the Sera this year will complete 100 years of
Yeah,
its existence. And as we were speaking before the recording started, who would have imagined among us the kind of comprehensive influence that the RSS would one day have on our polity, our governance, our public discourse, our societal relations in the way that the RSS has today. Um, and the purpose of this series of conversations is really to understand the RSS, what it stands for, and and uh, and and what it's how it works and what its impact has been and continues to be. So Ram, my first question is really, how, since you work so closely, as I said, indefatigably on uh, on understanding, uh, the ideological positions, prejudices, beliefs of the RSS and the Hindutva ideology overall. How would you summarize for us what the RSS stands for? Why was it constituted? And
yeah, this is a very crucial question. And I think I'll take a minute to explain the background in which RSS came up. As we know, during colonial period, many things were introduced, like education for Dalits, education for women on one side. On the other side, there was a rise of industrial society. Third, there was a introduction of modern education, which had a good dose of liberalism. Also, let's not forget, things are not black and white. So, from this, the group of people who came into social life who were not earlier in the public space, like Dalits, women, then average people, and these educated people also, they were deeply steeped in the liberal values, modern liberal values.
right,
So, as society was changing, the old people, old rulers, and their cohorts, like landlords and priestly class, they started feeling shaken.
okay,
Why? Because they were used to a sort of a birth based hierarchy where there is no place for liberal values, there is no place for social changes of the type which we are introducing. So, on one side, people like, I will say, Bhagat Singh, Mahatma Gandhi, Ambedkar, now these are totally reflecting the aspiration for a society which will be democratic, which will be liberal, which will be having the values of liberty, equality, fraternity, social justice, Ambedkar included. Now, other side, the old rulers, which were landlords and their associate priestly class, they were not used to such a system where a average Dalit can stand up to them, where a average woman can come into the social space, where the movements against the ruling classes, because the old system teaches us that king is a representative of God. You have
right,
to obey the king, otherwise you will be sent whatever that be hell or nark or jahannam. That was the classical understanding. So, in this situation, on one side, we see the rise of people who were in very embryonic form. It is difficult to discern that how people like Ambedkar, even at that time, were imagining a society with social justice. It was difficult to imagine that at that time, when Indian National Congress was formed, it had also the seeds of these values which are represented in Congress also. So this very, very embryonic thing. Now, one good thing which happened during colonial period was formation of organizations, which was not there in kingdoms and other places. So, from the rising classes, we see the coming up of people like Mahatma Gandhi, Maulana Azad, uh, Sardar Baldev Singh, Annie Besant coming to lead the Indian National Congress. Then we see Bhimrao Babasaheb Ambedkar's Republican Party of India, which was focusing mainly on social justice. Then we see the great revolutionaries like Bhagat Singh and his associates who were sacrificing for the freedom of their country. So these are on the one side where there is a bit of a dose of socialism, bit of a dose of social equality, and it integrating the country, like which fraternity which Gandhi represented to the utmost extent. Now, on the other side, these landlords and rajas, zamindar, jagirdars, they also formed associations. So one, I'm just capsuling it. So one came up in the form of a Muslim League, later on which came to be led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Now they were looking up to the old times as the ideal ones. So surprisingly, many of them felt that Muhammad bin Qasim, who first attacked Sindh in 8th century, they identified with his rule as a Muslim nationalism. And the other side, Savarkar of Hindu Mahasabha and RSS as a whole, they thought we are a Hindu nation from times immemorial. They totally glossed over the fact that the word Hindu itself began as a geographical category. Later on, different religious traditions which were here, they were lumped together as Hindu. And Dr. Ambedkar there very nicely tells us that today's Hinduism is dominated by Brahminical values. So this is what was affecting him the most. So on the rising classes side, they have organizations where the name of religion is not there. They are totally inclusive, irrespective of caste, religion, language, and region. So these are the classes where I'll identify with people like Bhagat Singh, Ambedkar, and Gandhi. On the other side, there came up
Now,
Muslim.
this would also include trade unions,
Also include.
trade unions,
Yeah.
worker
That,
unions.
that I am just trying to lump together, just to cut it short, that
Yeah.
Bhagat Singh represented the total thing which happened with the working class because his focus was also being a left person, focus like Singar and Lokhande. They were they included the rights for the workers. So on this side, we see that Muslim League identified with the Muslim kings, Hindu Mahasabha, and later on RSS, which came up. Actually, it was Savarkar who first articulated the word Hindutva and Hindu Rashtra. For him, Hindutva is not a religion, in his own words. Hindutva is not merely religion. It is based on three things: Aryan race, Brahminical values, and this holy land. So he also defined Hindu in a very political sense that everybody who regards this land east of Sindhu as fatherland and holy land is a Hindu. So, by very definition, this is a Hindu nation, and Muslims and Christians are out of it. And for them, the golden period is the time when Manusmriti's rules ruled the society. So, RSS also came up in this background. Now, one very important thing to note is that 1925 and Nagpur, these two things are not incidental that RSS came up in 1925. RSS came up in Nagpur. The reason being that due to Ambedkar's teachings, and earlier, of course, Ambedkar's third guru, Jyotirao Phule, he had begun this whole process of taking education to the Dalits, and Ambedkar followed it up by calling for social justice. In South, we see Periyar also doing same thing, self-respect movement and all that. So 1925 is the year by which time first we see 1920s non-cooperation movement led by Gandhi. This was his biggest instrument for social change. Bigger thing is not that he just opposed the British. Bigger thing is that he drew the average person into the political space. He drew the average person for struggle, for formation of a nation. So I don't see Gandhi just fighting against British Empire. I see Gandhi also laying brick by brick the foundations of modern India. So this is one in which average people also started participating. Number one. Number two, at the same time when Dalits and women they started coming to social space, the old classes, which I called old ruling classes, they started feeling disturbed. So 1925 was the year when in Maharashtra, Vidarbha area, there was a movement called non-Brahman movement. Now, non-Brahman movement basically was not just against Brahminism; it was against landlordism and Brahminism, which very much were hand in glove with each other. So this disturbed the some of the people of that class, and they came together to form RSS. Now, in this, one more angle is there. On one side, they are disturbed because of the social changes of those people trying to become citizens in the embryonic form. Those people trying to be the agency of social change, like Dalits, women, and average people, modern liberal values, and all that. So this is one. Third angle here, see one of the founders of RSS, Dr. B.S. Munje. He had been to Italy to meet Mussolini. So he visited Mussolini and he was very impressed by Mussolini's ideas and building of that. So that's why he also brought in the element of military training and other things. So I'll summarize it by say that RSS formation can be based on three major things. One is education amongst Dalits and women, drawing of the average people into the national movement. Number two, the rising, rising social presence of liberal values. So whatever we call, they were compared to that time, they were very liberal and very progressive values. And third was the influence of this fascist nationalism, which was growing up in Europe. So in Partha Chatterjee's book, I read he has written a book about this in the Pali of the Beast. So he says that his father was a RSS pracharak, and in RSS head office in Nagpur, which is there in Reshimbagh, they had a portrait of Hitler to greet the people who were coming into the thing. So RSS was sitting on these things. So primarily feudal values in the modern form. So basically, I distinguish feudal values as the values of hierarchy, birth based hierarchy, unshakable hierarchy of caste and gender. And the other side, as India was growing, it was growing on the very, very elementary values of liberty, equality, fraternity, social justice, in which all our freedom fighters contributed to in a great way. So when RSS is formed, this is the background. It is not that they just want a particular Hindu nation. They want particular values also to be to be dominant. And those values, as Ambedkar says, these are the Brahminical values which RSS made its foundation.
That's really very, very thoughtful and useful, Ram. I mean, I feel that to understand that moment in our history where the initial stages of liberal values were emerging. It is the reactionary, feudal, and Brahminical forces that came together
Yeah.
in opposition. Um, just taking that thought briefly a little further, Ram, because there's so much more to talk about. Well, how would you define the ideology of the RSS? What does it stand for?
See, RSS basically stands for, I will say, presentation of the old values which they call golden period of Hindu history, represented by Manusmriti. So RSS stands on two legs. One is the values of Manusmriti, the values of caste and gender hierarchy, and second is its stance against religious minorities, Muslim to begin with, and Christians to be followed up. Like as I told you, Savarkar came up with this definition of Hindu: Pitrabhumi, Punyabhumi, Holy Land, Fatherland, one who believes that is a Hindu. So RSS ideology basically is the, I will say, very not refined, presented in a very attractive label, the feudal values. If you permit me, I will just can explain it in still another language. Like rising classes, I named for sake of representation Gandhi, Ambedkar, Bhagat Singh. Okay. Now, these are on one side, and Ambedkar I take as the representative of values which he articulated very nicely in Indian Constitution. And on other side, RSS, there was one Sarasanga Chalak, as they call it, the chief dictator of the organization. There was K. Sudarshan. In year 2000, he became the chief of RSS. So what Ambedkar did, he got Manusmriti burnt, and that Manusmriti was also burned by Ambedkar's associate. Ambedkar was not against Brahmins; he was against Brahminism. So one of his associates, Sahastra Buddhe, he burnt Manusmriti in Baba Sahib Ambedkar's presence. So what does this represent? This represents that Baba Sahib, and thereby the Indian values which emerged, they were basically against the values of this Manusmriti, which were around caste gender hierarchy. And other side, K. Sudarshan, and even now we see the remnants of that, even when they said we want 400 par so that we can change the constitution. So Sudarshan very clearly articulated this. There is not, I couldn't find much on the website. Even I had written an article in Tehelka. So what was that? Sudarshan said Indian constitution is based on the Western values. That is not acceptable to us. So that should be scrapped, and we should build a constitution based on Hindu bracket Indian holy books. So what is Ambedkar doing? Burning Manusmriti, becoming the chairman of drafting committee of Indian Constitution. And what is RSS doing in the form of K. Sudarshan? Talking against Constitution, which continues even in the present times in many forms, and calling for a constitution which is based on values like that of Manusmriti, etc. So this is a fundamental basic understanding which I have about RSS politics. Means to oppose its ideology is, I will say, Manusmriti in a refined way, not refined in the values, but language, refined language. They keep changing their language, but the values remain the same. So that ideology wise, that question is a bit difficult to answer. So basically, I'll say their ideology is that of Hindu nationalism. Their ideology is that of values which prevailed here during feudal times.
But Ram, how do we, we see massive support among Adivasis and Dalits for the RSS project. Is there not a paradox if the RSS fundamentally stands for the Manusmriti, in which caste, inequality and oppression is central? Um, how do we explain their success in garnering Dalit and Adivasi support uh, for for the ideological project and the political project of the RSS?
See, Harsh, it is a phenomenon which they foresaw right in the beginning. One, I must say that RSS is a very dynamic organization. Let's give the credit where it is due. And it has sent its pracharaks. Pracharaks is like their highest post. Swayam Sevak is a one who comes daily and all that. Pracharak is totally committed and dedicated, like most of like our present prime minister, the previous BJP prime minister. They are all pracharaks. So what they did, they sent their pracharak to each of these sectors of society.
Mhm.
So first they formed, I sequentially this may be not that accurate, but they formed something called Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram.
Yeah.
So Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, what did it did that it went to areas of Adivasis. First is just note their word. They are not calling them Adivasi.
Mhm.
They are calling them Vanvasi.
Right.
And their explanation, one Singhal was there, who was president of VHP, I think, international president of VHP. He said that why our Vanvasi brothers are living in jungles. So his explanation is simple. Whatever are our problems, put it on the other. So he said the Muslim invaders came, they tried to convert these very self righteous and dignified people, and because to escape their conversion efforts, they ran to jungles. So, this is their basic understanding that is put by Singhal. So, what do we do? What does RSS do? So, RSS goes to these places, and we must know that it has the biggest manpower as an organization in the country. So what do these pracharaks go? They set up their ashrams. I happened to visit one of the Vanvasi Kalyan ashram. So they get the Adivasi children. They steep them into Brahminical Hindu values. So they change their heroes from whatever they believed, nature worship, their ancestor. From there, they change it to that Ram, Krishna, and Ganpati. All these are the things you should worship. So from there, like telling the Adivasis that you are Hindus, number one. Number two, you were oppressed by Muslims. And so, Harsh, there is a very interesting phenomenon that other things they do. One is that some of the Adivasi legends they convert them into anti-Muslim heroes of Adivasi. Like there is one Suhail Dev in North India. So he had a fight with Ghazi Mia. Now, so Suheldev was a Adivasi. He must be having his own rule and all that. But now they are presenting Suheldev was a Hindu who killed this Gazimi. Gazimi actually happens to be some of the distant relatives of Mahmud Ghaznavi who had raided Somnath temple. Anyway, that apart. So Suheldev is now being presented as a Adivasi hero. For what? That he fought a Muslim
Mhm.
and observed his Hindu religion. So this narrative, I don't know, but this narrative has caught the Adivasi society in a big way. Number one. Number two, they do some of the basic social work, means helping some of these Adivasis and trying to give them some facilities. They do that, like what emulating the Christian missionaries, seva, service. So surveys, education, these things, plus a narrative which is built on Adivasis being anti-Muslim because their heroes have done this. So this narrative is very strong, and this we have to try to understand it a bit more. That this is not only with Adivasis. What happens to Dalits? Now Dalits again are a section whom they want to get subjugated. So practically, we see that every stage, the affirmative action for Dalits, which came in the form of reservation, that they opposed time and again in a direct way, indirect way, and actually, it was after Mandal Commission implementation that Ram Temple movement picked up, our greater mobilization was put into that. So Ambedkar says there should be annihilation of caste. Caste should be abolished. Intercaste marriages promoted to do that. And Gandhi also came to the same conclusion. While these people say there is a organization they have floated, very big organization, Samajik Samrasta Manch. What is that? Social Harmony Forum. There are different castes, so let them collaborate with each other and let's live them peacefully. So abolition of caste is not in their agenda. Continuation of caste system is very a part of them. And they say, okay, you are below, we are up, but we should be in harmony. So in this language, they have tried to win Adivasis and Dalits in a very big way. Third, I'll say that women, what happens to women? Now, if you see Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh, there is a word called Swayam, my being, myself. In the organization which was formed under their supervision for women is Rashtra Sevika Samiti. I hope you can note that here Swayam is not there. So, as per any patriarchal ideology, the being, the Swayam of women is supposed to be controlled by men. So, Rashtra Sevika Samiti. So, amongst women, they try to promote religiosity of a high order, try to associate with them through Dashera or whatever festivals are there. Operating through their religiosity, they try to win them over that look, we women, Muslim men are so lecherous. They try to target us. It is the RSS and our brothers in RSS who will try to save us. So this narrative they also use for women, but keeping them there only that you are Sevika, you are Sevika. We are Swayam Sevaks, you are Sevika. So keeping their ideology intact in these sections of society whom they want to hegemonize, whom they want to dominate, they have kept, uh, devised such clever mechanisms that they keep their ideology of hierarchy intact, but also the victims of hierarchy also they try to win over for uh, political purposes, electoral purposes, and even for strengthening their agenda of Hindu nationalism.
So Ram, a lot of your work, your I would call it popular education, so one person sort of project of going to every corner of the country, also writing and speaking. You focused, I think, a lot of your work on the one hand on debunking prejudices against Muslims and Christians, and on the other hand, you're trying to debunk their rewriting of history. So I wanted to, the remaining time that we have, could we first have a little bit about some major prejudices and uh, how you have tried to debunk these prejudices.
See, Harsh, this is, I actually began my work around these myths, misconceptions, which have been rooted into the social psyche. And just to recall, it was 1992 when Babri Mosque was demolished. And that time, they popularized that Muslim kings demolished Hindu temples to humiliate Hindu religion. So that was the first thing I tried to understand why temples were destroyed. And to my uh, surprise, temples were not destroyed for the sake of religion. Many times, like Mahmud Ghaznavi, Somnath temple, he says that I have come here as a temple destroyer, But Shikan. That is the word because Muhammad Sahab had opposed this idol worship. So, hiding under that shadow, he said, I am a But Shikan, destroyer of idols. But when one questions it logically, he is coming from Ghazna, Afghanistan, to, according to him, to destroy a idol. Is it believable that on his way there are so many temples? And forget other idols, the Lord Gautam Buddha statues, which were so tall, 53 meters, 35 meters, which Taliban idiots destroy. So why he did not attack those idols? So it is simple. There was no wealth. Wealth was there in Somnath temple. As we saw, Somnath temple had infinite wealth. And every time he used to plunder Somnath temple, once he took the wealth from Somnath temple on 16 elephants, loaded on 16 elephants. So that, and second thing, this Hindu Muslim issue, how does it come in? Tarikh-e Bayaki, which is the source of many of these things. Mahmud Ghaznavi's army had 12 generals. Out of these, 5 generals were Hindus: Tilak, Sondhi, Harjan, Rai, and Hind. Then, when he reached the Somnath temple, one of the Hindu kings, Anand Pal helped him out of fear. And when he left there, he got coins minted, and in those coins there was a writing in Sanskrit. So it becomes clear it's not a Hindu Muslim issue. It is not a question of Muslims destroying Hindu temples. There are other reasons. By the way, this temple destruction had became a big issue to begin with. So there, when I started studying it, I came across one of the writings of Kavi Kallan, poet Kallan, 11th century Kashmir great poet, and he is one of the initial literary person in this. So there he mentions that Raja Harshdev of Kashmir in 11th century, he appointed a special officer for what? For destroying those idols, bringing those idols which were made of gold and silver. Then recently, of course, Aurangzeb is the biggest villain in people's psychology now. So one knows that he destroyed Kashi Vishwanath temple. That is true. But if we see the book of Vishambarnath Pandey, I think he was governor of Orissa and a historian and a freedom fighter. So what he does a simple job. He collects the court orders, which is called farman in Urdu or Persian farman. Those farmans in that Aurangzeb, close to 90 temples, Aurangzeb gives the donations. Then I came across one uh, Babar ki Wasiyat, will of Babar, which is there even now in National Museum, unless they have changed it. So what does Babar tell Humayun as his last wish? That look, son, let's thank Allah for giving us the opportunity to rule on this country. But son, remember, majority of the people here are Hindus. They respect cow and they worship in temples. So during the course of your kingship, you don't let the temples be destroyed and don't let the cow slaughter take place. So question is, so this was one myth, temple, and then Richard Eaton and now Audrey Trushke, the two professional historians, they have come that Aurangzeb destroyed nearly 10 temples and he gave donation to more than 60, 70 or whatever you have. That book really chronicles us. So myth destruction is this, that, and then further, there is a very excellent book by Richard Eaton. He is a historian, archaeologist, and he describes that whenever two Hindu kings were fighting, the winner Hindu king used to destroy the Kul Devata, means the clan god of the defeated king, just to humiliate him, just to give a message to the people that now I am your ruler, you have to give the tax to me. So, this all made it clear to me that temple destruction was not for the sake of religion. Many Muslim kings also, when same Aurangzeb, also destroy one of the mosque in Golconda. One of the mosque in Golconda. Why? Because Golconda's ruler, Tana Shah, did not give him tribute, Lagan, for 3 years. Aurangzeb asked him, what is the problem? So he tells that there is a drought in my country, drought in my area. People are not giving me tribute. Lagan, they are not giving me. How can I pay you? So then Aurangzeb sends his spy and finds out that Tana Shah has hidden his wealth underneath a mosque. So Aurangzeb does the same thing which kings do for wealth and power. So this was one thing. Temple destruction was a very serious matter at that time.
Yeah, that was a very powerful. You've been able to debunk it, but would you suggest a few other dominant prejudices and the debunking of it, which you've spent so much time working?
Yeah, that is very one. I'll join it with one humorous story. People generally say that Muslim kings came on the horseback with Quran in one hand, sword in the other, and they force people to accept Islam. So actually, once it was a real example that I went to one of the colleges and I was saying this, that people say this. So some students stood up. They said, "How is this possible, sir? If the king has sword in one hand, Quran in the other, who will manage the horse? घोड़े की लगाम कौन संभालेगा?" So anyway, that apart, let me tell you, the beginning of Islam in India took place in 7th century, right when Islam came in Saudi area. The Arab traders were coming to Kerala, Malabar coast, famous for spices, world famous, best possible things. And those traders who came, when they became Muslims, they mixed with the local population, and that's how Islam began in India. No king, no role of the king here. Then, second thing, the oldest mosque in India, Chiraman Juma Mosque, that was that stands in Malabar coast of Kerala. No king involved here. Second thing. Now, kings sometimes force the opponent to change their religion. Like there is a Muslim king, Aurangzeb has won over Sambhaji Maharaj. So, in order to humiliate Sambhaji Maharaj, he will say, "You accept Islam, otherwise I will torture you." Fine, good enough. So, this happened. This happened. But this is not the way of conversion. This is in a way of taking revenge. How did Islam spread in India? So, Swami Vivekananda, one of the great Swamis whose works have not been understood properly or fully. So, what does he say in his various publications of epistles and books? He says that coming of Islam to India was a great liberatory force for the lower castes. The lower castes who were prevented from temple entry, the lower castes who were tortured because of the caste hierarchy, they found in Islam a good refuge. Theoretically, there is equality. Of course, I do say that Islam also was gripped by caste system later on, but the hope was there that you will be able to pray in the same line as king or anybody else. So this is Swamiji's thing, which is one can find in collected works. And mass conversion, which took place in India, was took place mainly because of the influence of Sufi saints.
Mhm.
Sufi saints, no boundaries, no rigid notions. Everybody is welcome to their hospice. Everybody is welcome to their mazars. And here, when they came under the contact of these Sufi saints, their spiritual hunger was met. Now, this is a difficult term. I also can't explain more that. But people, average people facing insecurity in life, sometimes do look for such a force which can give them respite from the social oppression which they feel. So, this is what Swamiji tells us, and this is how Islam spread in India, more or less. So, it was not that Muslims tried to force Islam here. Then third thing is, of course, Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, our ex election commissioner. He has come out with a brilliant book on myths of population. Now, people are now being frightened in social media that shortly Muslims will become 90%. Like Assam, you have written article on that.
Yeah.
9% will become Muslims and Hindus will become minorities and they will have no place. Now, Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, in a very brilliant book, tells us through mathematical modeling and others that this population amongst more children amongst Muslims is there only because of the ignorance and other things. Even polygamy, theoretically saying that Muslims have four wives, doesn't stand the logic. The very sex ratio is close to 940, 100,000 men and 940 women. And lately, of course, if you see the thing, our Sarasanga Jalakji recently said that Hindu people should have, not Hindu, he said everybody should have three children. Now, when I was a medical student, that time one scheme was started, family welfare scheme. It was called family planning scheme at that time. So that is showing result now. And the rate of fertility is coming down very drastically. Not only amongst Hindus, even amongst Muslims, the rate of fertility difference is generally 0.5% per woman. So there is nothing more about that. So these are the myths which, on rational ground, one can do that. And if you want to take one more myth, latest myth, which has to international thing, that all Muslims are not terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslims. So this became popular, made popular by American media in after 9/11 attack on Twin Towers. I generally try to put it a very simplistic way. If terrorism is due to Islam, which country in the world will have maximum number of terrorists? Indonesia.
Mhm.
Indonesia, we don't see such a thing. Number two, which area is biggest victim of terrorist acts? Which area? Is it America? World Trade Center, of course. After that, regular acts of terror are not there. America, India,
Pakistan.
yeah, West Asia, Pakistan, yes, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq. That's the area maximally suffering this. And that area is rich with oil. It has three things:
Mhm.
maximum Muslim population, maximum storage oil wells, and maximum victims of terrorism. So obviously, terrorism was propped up by American political designs to counter the Russian occupation of Afghanistan. So that, in a way, summarizes. Beyond that, we don't go. But terrorism, again, that has become popularly planted into the social psyche, social understanding. So these are the myths which basically I use two methods. I am neither a historian nor a social scientist. I use basically a method of science that go logically, go rationally, try to understand the events and try to see what interpretations are given and what other interpretations are possible. So that is a simple thing which nothing great is there, but it is very difficult to follow.
No, it's very significant. But Ram, the RSS might argue, members of the RSS might argue that these have become part of the social common sense, but we have nothing to do with it. So, what is the role of the RSS in the spreading and the nurturing of these prejudices and the
Yeah.
state?
See, I think the beginning of this, when RSS was formed, they formed a basic module, training module. So the training module there was that we are a Hindu nation from times immemorial. Muslims and Christians are foreigners. They have tormented the Hindu nation. And in that, very popularly, they tell these young boys who come to the shakhas that how Muslim kings destroyed temples, how atrocious they were, how they converted by force. Like Sambhaji, a single isolated case, they will blow it up as an example that they tried to convert people. So RSS began with this. As I said, RSS began with two things. One is glorification of the traditional values, Brahminical values, and second is stories constructed around evil character of Muslims and later Christians. Now Christians are again on the same pedestal, and lot of hate is being spread in the shakhas. So in the shakhas, I'll tell one example also. I, in my life, in my, of course, in childhood, I used to go to play in the shakhas. That time I didn't understand much. But when I was 11 or 12, I had bit exposure to political things. So one of my very dear friends, he was going to Shakha and he told me, okay, come, we'll go to Shakha. You will enjoy it. I went for one day. We played. So far, so good. But after we played, the chief brought us together and they started criticizing Gandhi, Nehru, Muslim kings. So that was the day I said, this is not the place for me.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm trying to give my example as to how in Shakhas this began there. This begins in Shakha. So when I hear Mohan Bhagwat talking of all honey coated words, I think of Shakhas.
Mhm.
What is being taught in Shakhas? And this training goes higher. This so-called indoctrination is not just in the Shakha. Then, especially weekly, monthly, then their training program goes on for 6 months, in which they did this. So this is number one. Number two, you see that in 1977 or 8, when Janata Party came to power, Lal Krishna Advani became Information and Broadcasting Minister. So he started planting RSS characters into the media. Stage one. Stage two, in 2003, when Modi is the Chief Minister of Gujarat, he gives blank check to the corporate world. And that's why Ratan Tata said, if you're not doing business in Gujarat, you are a fool. So means he gave all the facility. And same time, he encouraged them to buy Indian print media, television media, and NDTV was the last victim.
Yeah.
So media, then third, their own social media,
Yeah.
is again huge. Fourth, their Shishu Mandirs, Ekal Vidyalaya. And so this chain, which has grown right under our seeing the whole thing, this chain is very powerful, very difficult to break, and mainly because I think we have to blame ourselves that when all this was going on, what were we doing? We were ignoring, oh, this is nothing, this will pass off. As we will progress, communal problem will go. But the power of this thinking, of social thinking, we underestimated. And that social thinking is becoming a huge giant, which is very difficult to confront in the ordinary.
So that's very powerful and comprehensive. You said, right, beginning with the Shaka and the Pracharaks and the Shishu Mandirs and then the mainstream media which they buy up and the social media. You have a huge machinery to disseminate these prejudices on a daily basis, and reaches every house, every home, every heart. I just the last question that I the two questions I wanted to ask, with briefly. One is that they are completely rewriting history now. I mean, for young people today, what they will learn in their textbooks. You are older than me by 10 years. You were born before India became free. You've been through school. You've been through college. We've learned in many different ways. Now that history is not going to be available to young people. So, what is the history that the RSS is trying to construct? What are its main pillars?
Yeah, see, Harsh, first coming to RSS,
Mm,
I'd like to give you example of Pakistan.
mm,
Actually, that Famila Riaz poem was very powerful. Are bhai tum bhi hum jaise nikle. Means what disastrous path they took, we are following the same. So in Pakistan book,
You turned out to be just like us. That's what he said.
yeah, we turned out to be just like. So in Pakistan, what they did,
Mm.
from their school books, they have deleted Hindus everywhere, as if there were no Hindu kings, no Hindu rule, etc., etc. So the result of this was Veer Sanghvi, one of the eminent editors. In one of his column, he writes that one of his diplomat friend went to his Pakistani counterpart in some Pakistani city. He introduced him to his daughter, Pakistan diplomat's daughter, and his daughter started shouting abuses on Hindus. So this is the outcome.
Mhm.
So in India, what is happening? First of all, they deleted the Mughal period from the history, saying that this has no relevance to us, forgetting that this was the period when Sufi and Bhakti traditions developed in India. This was a period that one of the great religions we have, Sikhism, came up and flourished to a great period. This was a period where great architectural achievements were there. This was a period where Mughal courts were celebrating Hindu festivals. Just a Charaga, Diwali, just a Gulabi, Holi. So this whole thing which was showed our amity at social level, friendship at social level, fraternity at social level is being changed.
This is also
Then,
of I mean, it was a large part of the world's GDP came from this part of the world under the Mughals, and that is why the colonial powers came here. Right.
yeah, so that was one. And second, if you see that whatever during that very collaboration between Muslim kings and Hindu rajas,
Mhm.
they are trying to delete. Akbar, his commander in chief was Man Singh. Rana Pratap, his commander in chief was Hakim Khan Sur.
Mhm.
Shivaji Maharaj, his commander or his confidential secretary was Maulana Hyder Ali. So even I have a lot of reservations in calling that as a Mughal period, because there is no Hindu period, no Muslim period. Mahatma Gandhi tells this very well in his book Hind Swaraj. Hindu kings, Muslim kings, they collaborated also, they fought also. So question is, changing history in this way will intensify the hatred against weaker sections of society, Muslims and Christians both. Because history, if we see the history like Gandhi and Nehru, when he calls, like Purushottam ji can talk better about it, when Nehru talks about this Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb, India is a palimpsest where different layers of culture, civilizations came one above the other, mixing and creating a great Indian culture. That thing is being erased left, right, and center. So today's history is basically about glorification of Hindu kings. How now kings are kings. So I recently thought of a very interesting thing, that oh, that king was cruel because in Chittor he killed 30,000 people. But I ask, gentlemen, ladies, which is the king who was not using sword to kill the enemy? Every king we see has a sword in the hand.
Yeah.
That is not cut vegetables. That is meant. And more he kills with his sword, more his sword is heavy. We say, oh, that is a great king. So kingdoms cannot be judged like this. And that whole logic of kingdoms as a sort of a uh, rule of a king or sitting on the top of a exploitative system of peasants and artisans, that we don't see. We see Hindu king, Muslim king. So that is what is coming in, and these changes in our history book will intensify the hatred against not only Muslims and Christians, but also weaker sections of society. And in people's thinking, they will marginalize the women also. The role of women in history, which is remarkable in production, in creating art, in creating social norms, that will all not be there. It will be all great Hindu kings. So this whole system which RSS wants to bring at the social level, that will be strengthened through such a type of a syllabus which is going to come into operation, which is already being coming into operation at various levels.
And also, Ram, to create a fictitious story about their contribution to India's freedom struggle, which was not there, that also is a rewriting. And to minimize and trivialize the contributions of people like Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru and so on in the freedom struggle. I think that's also part of the rewriting of history. But Ram, just the last word. We're seeing a battle between in the public space, in the political space, in the social sphere, in the cultural sphere, a battle between you know uh, what we call the idea of India, the constitutional idea, but what you've also underlined is also the ideas of rationalism, scientific thought, and so on. And on the other hand, we have uh, this almost like a juggernaut of Hindutva, which you very elaborately explained to us, is carrying with it uh, ideas also of caste oppression, of gender oppression, of feudalism, of irrationalism, um, and hate, and hate against religious minorities. In this clash of ideas and values and politics and understanding of the world. You go out and travel so much among young people. Uh, how how successful is their project of changing hearts and minds in young India, and to what extent is young India uh, holding out? And really, with that, wherein lies your hope, Ram? Those would be the final words.
Yeah. See, Harsh, from last 2 3 years,
Mhm,
I'm feeling a bit hopeful.
mhm,
Earlier, I had practically given up internally.
mhm.
I had thought that nothing can
Change.
change, and we are down for that line in which countries like Germany, Italy force itself. But last 3 years, I see that there is some amount of resistance coming up at political level, at ideological level. Political level, of course, I will see that the yatras which have taken place, 3 yatras, the massive response which they drew
Which yatras?
showed,
You're talking about the Bharat Jodo yatras and
yeah, the massive response which they drew has quite impressed me that there is a space still now for a alternative narrative to pick up. Number one. Number two, as the big media has been sold out to corporate, many efforts, like even including this effort which you have holding the responsibility, many such excellent channels have come up, and some people have stopped seeing television, stopped taking newspapers seriously. For a serious thing, they resort to people like Dhruv Rathi or Ravish Kumar or Satya Hindi or Ashok Kumar Pandey or Ruchika Sharma. So there I see a hope that while there is a total hopelessness because of other things, some germ of hope at ideological level also is coming up. And that is something which is giving me some respite from the helplessness and hopelessness in which we have been living so far.
so Ram, I think carrying that moment of hope that there is a massive ideological project of the RSS which is trying to push us into a period of valorized caste and gender and feudal oppression and irrationality. You do see hope, and I think more than most people in this country, the amount of young people you interact with, across the country, you're seeing changes in their hearts and minds. You're seeing a resistance. You're seeing it also in the kind of political mobilization that we're seeing. So I do hope that uh, all your lifetime efforts uh, will also bear fruit, and we reclaim an idea we reclaim the idea of an India which belongs equally to all, and which is, as you underlined, which is not uh, uh, sort of mired in superstition, in prejudice, in irrationalism, and in hatred. So thank you with those wishes, Zindabad, and many thanks.
Thank you, Harsh, for your kind words and for calling me on this show. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.